Okay, pretty straightforward what's going to happen right now. Here to talk about Classroom of the Elite Season 3 Episodes 3, 4 and 5. This section of the anime covers Volume 9 of the light novel. Despite there being no special exam, a fair bit of stuff happens. A lot more than in the training camp, and Ayanokoji is very much behind the scenes in all of this while hiding in plain sight. So essentially we get to see the main character back at his very best, being a cold-hearted but very cunning manipulative. I'm not here to glaze over his gaslighting prowess. I'll leave that to the self-improvement be like Ayanokoji type videos. I'm here to go over the key moments in these episodes that I think deserve more context from the source material. Let's get down to it. First off, the discussion with Saki Yanagi and Student Council President Nagumo. In the light novel, it's described that Nagumo made the Student Council office his own, with a load of unspecified items of his on display around the room. This clearly foreshadows how he intends to treat the entire student body during his tenure as Student Council President. Nagumo does make a joke about how plain it is and goes on to say wherever he is, that place automatically is the student council room. To me, that's a decent substitute, and you could also argue that that sinister soundtrack playing in the scene reinforces his demeanor just fine as well. The next point is about Hirata and Kuroizawa breaking up. If they followed the plot development faithfully to the light novel, Ayanokoji would have had separate talks with the two of them about ending their fake relationship back in the season 2 finale on the day of the double date, though Hirata made it clear that he would leave the decision to Kuroizawa since the whole facade was always for her benefit. Next point, Ayanokoji talking with Wang Miyu. In the light novel, on a day separate from the Ayanokoji group discussion, she approaches him on the way back to the dorm. Wang Miyu asks Ayanokoji if they can talk in Keyaki Mall Cafe. There isn't much noteworthy to add other than Ayanokoji saying to himself that he wasn't really listening to her but scrutinizing what she was saying for information that can be used for later, and that if he seemed like he cared then it was only a convenient bonus. While I wasn't surprised that he expressed this, I did however find this pretty funny. On top of noticing her presence before she approached him, Ayanokoji was also aware of another person who was tailing him, that being Hashimoto from Class A. If you've watched episode 4, then you'll have gathered that it's to do with the discussion that took place on the last night of the training camp special exam between Hashimoto, Ruin, Nagumo and the elder Horikita. I already mentioned in my last video that in the light novel, the unusual party have this discussion inside the accommodation building and Ayanokoji is able to sneak up to them and overhear what was said. The main takeaways from that moment is that Hashimoto doesn't believe the lie that's been concocted by Ayanokoji to bury what happened at the rooftop incident. Yes, the rooftop incident, not the abandoned classroom incident that took place at the end of the second season. Then the two seniors appear and, like in the anime, after some gloating, the current student council president Nagumo playfully tips off Hashimoto about Manabu valuing Ayanokoji the most out of all the first years. Hashimoto of course tried to dismiss it at first, but believing that Nagumo might be onto something, he starts his own investigation separate from Saki Yanagi about our main character. After the Zazen exam finished, Hashimoto asks Ayanokoji what he thinks about the now Class D situation after seeing a suspicious interaction between Ryuin, Ishizaki and Albert. Naturally, as he's already aware that Hashimoto is trying to feel him out, Ayanokoji acts none the wiser. The next point I want to bring up, the elder Horikita calling Ayanokoji. Yes, his initial purpose of calling is accurate, but they really cut this one down. For one, in the light novel, Kushida is actually the very next person to see Nagumo after Saki Yanagi, to which they literally pass one another. And Saki Yanagi notes that Kushida might not be all she seems if she's willing to meet with the student council president after his actions in the training camp. Going back to the call, Manabu also confirms that his source is from in fact Vice President Kiriyama, who while he believes the source is credible, Ayanokoji doesn't fully trust in the Vice President as a potential ally. That's the other reason why Ayanokoji is a little forceful with his request to Kiriyama by threatening him to notify Manabu that he's a lost cause. Next point, Ayanokoji and Kuroizawa meeting up. The moment itself is pretty much the same, so is Hashimoto confronting the both of them, though all of this was planned by Ayanokoji in the light novel, or should I say his thought process in the moment was very clear. He knew that his easy to read daily habits frustrated Hashimoto to the point where he would latch on to the first out of the ordinary action Ayanokoji makes to confirm his suspicions of him. He even goes a step further to engineer the meeting time in the light novel. Expecting Kuroizawa to try and inconspicuously hand a gift early in the morning or later in the evening, he decided to turn off his phone the night before. This event is a couple days after Ayanokoji's conversation with Wang Miyu, where Hashimoto's lingering presence is noted. This gives him enough time to deduce that Hashimoto tails him during lunch and after school until around 6 in the evening, leading him to meet Kuroizawa at 5. The thing I didn't like about the change is that they didn't bother to even thread the points together a little. In the training camp, you see the moment, then it's left to hibernate for an episode, then boom, Hashimoto appears again. Studio Lurch already had a nice plot to run with, but they decided to just snip it in the middle. Next, we have the rumors surrounding Ichinose set up by Sakayanagi thanks to the tip-off by Nagumo. Ayanokoji hears about these rumors the same morning the news of Hirata and Kuroizawa's breakup arose. In a moment that doesn't get included in the anime, Kanzaki is in a confrontation with Hashimoto, who confirms that he's the one spreading the rumors, but not starting them. This occurs in the presence of the Ayanokoji group, barring Yukimura. Ayanokoji mentions that event to Ichinose in the discussion in Horikita's room. Following on from the conversation between the two after Ichinose leaves, Ayanokoji notes to himself that the change from Horikita is too drastic from the old version of herself. I feel like that the anime only has gathered that this is true without Ayanokoji's monologue, so this omission gets a pass. The next point we have is Kamuro giving Ayanokoji some expo on her secret. While she does steal a can of beer to try and earn his trust, Ayanokoji stays in his room for her to return in the light novel. Here's my problem with the change. Ayanokoji notes that the beer is cold like it's been in the refrigerator. Then Ayanokoji states to Sakayanagi 2 ways Kamuro was able to give him that specific beer can. Get it from Sakayanagi herself when she stepped out, or have Kamuro preserve the coldness in her bag before she initially approached him. In the anime, assuming that Ayanokoji didn't let her go and see Sakayanagi before their trip to the convenience store, we have to assume she had an ice pack or two in her bag straight off the bat. The plot was fine as it was in the light novel. So yeah, even though it's minor, it still goes in the
"why they go and do that?"
pile of changes, especially when it's made clear that Ayanokoji wasn't particularly interested from the start and sniffed out Sakayanagi's intentions from the start. The beverage was just confirmation, though I will admit I'm being very nitpicky about this only because I thought the idea of keeping a freezer pack or two in her bag for the sake of keeping a beer can cold for Ayanokoji to inspect is stupid. Next point, Ichinose confessing her sins in her classroom where there should have been a commotion. It is hard pressed to call what you see on screen a commotion. It was clearly stated that every Class B student was present in that moment. In the anime, I counted 8 students in the classroom, not including Ichinose, and 5 outside the classroom. Studio Lurch demonstrated yet again that they can't be asked to generate a couple character models for a few seconds of screen time. We do love a fleshed out backstory, and fine, it had weight for whatever that's worth. That part was fine. The next moment I want to talk about is the Ayanokoji Ichinose expo scene. Outside from that first visit to Ichinose after dealing with Hashimoto confronting him and Kuroizawa, Ayanokoji doesn't actually enter her room again. The remainder of the interaction had Ayanokoji outside her door during lunchtime, which he could afford to do since Hashimoto had stopped tailing him after the Valentine's Day incident to focus on the upcoming exams. However, Ichinose wouldn't let him in and asks him to leave her alone, to which he sits down and stays silent until lunch break is finished. He repeats this 2 more times with no response from Ichinose. On the 4th day, he makes a breakthrough just by casually talking, pretty much leading to the conversation you see in the anime. The next and last point, after he finishes his business with Sakayanagi, Ayanokoji is on the phone to Kushida. In the light novel, a chapter full of flashbacks follow, consisting of Ayanokoji's actions behind the scenes, 2 of which include the moment he made the deal with Kushida and the series of interactions with Ichinose. The studio decides to do away with the former and have the 2 of them meet up post-incident. The episode has 1 long flashback in the beginning, middle, and a string of recent flashback moments at the end. I have no complaints about this change. In fact, this is one ideal effect of a change should have, whether it's a variation of something in the source material or a complete anime canon moment, in the service of the story and the medium without inadvertently making a deviation from an aspect in the characters in question in the source material. That's it for this video. Because the next arc has only started with the show's latest episode, the next video isn't going to be around for some time. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It helps these videos get seen. If this isn't your first video of mine that you've watched, consider subscribing. Helps you stay up to date with the channel's activities and I'd really appreciate it. See ya.